Welcome to Let's Talk Real Estate and Stuff, the podcast where we dive deep into the world of real estate and investing and random stuff that make life interesting. I'm John Whitfield, joined by my co-hosts Carlos Zamora from Invest Views and Carrot, and BP from the Ted Sits Ops and Mobile Home Operator. How's it going, gentlemen?
I have to give BP his credit. The carrots at the table were a massive hit. People thought it was hilarious. We got more people. Got to give credit where credit's due. I did share there was a California notary guy day one that told me the same idea. So he must be following BP on social or TikTok or something like that. But it was a massive hit back home after traveling. Very happy to
predict the future.
Yeah, some people do that. Some people do predict the future.
So it was a hit?
It was a hit, massive hit. Everybody that came by complimented it. So that's just the new SOP moving forward. And I didn't even have to DoorDash it. We stayed in a really funky hotel, the St. Louis one that we were at. It was it's called Union Station. So it was like a train station. People there love trains. It was a train station. The main area, like where dinner and the bar is, there's like a light show, like a trippy light show every hour, starting at like 7:00 at night. It was really cool venue. St. Louis doesn't have a ton going on. It's pretty industrial, pretty chill.
You should have went with baby carrots, though. I don't know why you went regular carrots and did all that.
We went regular carrot. So we didn't do the DoorDash Instacart. The restaurant upstairs had carrots. So I went up there and I went to the hostess and she's like, "Oh, can I get you a seat for lunch?" And I was like, "Not quite." And I explained the whole thing of why we needed carrots. So I just got 2 big trays of carrots and had them there. Kept them wrapped up for a little bit. Then people started asking like, "Oh, can we eat those?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So definitely generated some more convos.
Yeah, food always does that.
Met some interesting people. Met a guy from Pad Split. Was a couple booths down to us. So once John confirms, we'll have him on the 16th of May, which will be exciting to talk about Pad Split as an exit strategy.
Put John on blast for not replying to the Slack message to confirm the date. That was good.
No, I was saying I just shot it through yesterday. That's a new thing.
I responded.
Yeah, it's in the calendar. That's not putting anybody on blast. So yeah, but it was interesting. So the event, really quick, if we want to talk about that event. So it was Real Estate Wealth Builders Con. This dude Dustin out of Phoenix. The real focus, I think, was like, God bless. The real focus was, you're welcome. The real focus was like building passive wealth through like getting like a rental each year, maybe getting a rental or 2 each year. So the crowd fit for Carrot was interesting. Brady gave it a really great presentation. Everybody came up and said how good the presentation was. But just people there are not doing direct to seller marketing. Like it was almost like a new world for them. We had a couple people there that were Carrot members, longtime Carrot members. Got to hang out with Matt Camp from Deal Champs. He runs their partner program over at Deal Machine. He lives in St. Louis, so he stopped by and hung out with us for the day, one of the days, which is pretty cool. But
buying one home a year doesn't really require. I mean, it's a lot of marketing,
Yeah, so we had a lot of
another wholesaler.
Yeah, or working with agents, like all those people, like they just work with agents. Like, oh, like why would I? The general synthesis was like, oh, like do I really need a website if I'm just having an agent represent me and just like writing a couple offers and just trying to do like one deal? So it was interesting. A lot of the vendors there were just people doing mortgages, IRA, different type of financing and debt. And at first, when we were setting up the booths, I was like, oh, that's interesting that they would just have so many what would seem like competing sponsors at the booths there, or 50% of the booths were like financing / debt type people. After having conversations and kicking up a lot of conversations with people, a lot of people were going there just to shop specific debt for different deals.
Yeah.
Whether it's the deal size that they have, where the deals are that they want to do, how seasoned they are, what they look like on paper.
That's a huge part of it for these people.
Yeah. So I even talked to people. And then I'll kick it over to UPP. There were even people there that weren't sponsors or they didn't get a VIP ticket. There were literally people that got tickets there that just would shop the sponsors. And then there were people that should have sponsored that were just shopping for people there without paying a sponsorship.
Interesting.
Was it sides,
highly attended?
Maybe 250 people.
All right. That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dean's was maybe 400, 450. The one before that.
Yeah, I dig it. All right. Well, welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We're diving in today to react to a video Jerry Norton posted regarding lawsuits in Arizona, where the AG is going after certain wholesalers, real estate professionals, not necessarily wholesalers, but and how the landscape of wholesaling is changing when it comes to regulation. I found this video to be very interesting, but also eye-opening to the future of wholesaling slash real estate investing in general and the marketing aspect of it.
Heck yeah.
Some of the key takeaways, just basically ethics.
Oh yeah.
I think
Ton
I
of
think if
ethics.
you yeah, Jerry's been around the block, right? And so he speaks from a very good point of view as to how to do business the right way. And he brought an attorney on, which I thought was really good instead of just another real estate guy, and I found it interesting that their main takeaway was just do business the
The
right
right
way.
way, eh?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And what that is, right? So I don't know what you guys thought of the video when you watched it. I know I sent it across in the Slack message, and I thought everyone should watch it and we should talk about it. But what were you guys' thoughts?
Yeah, no, I have posted. There's a QR code on the screen here, so if you're watching this, you can scan that with your phone, and then you can watch the original YouTube video. It was very insightful having the attorney on. I liked that aspect of it, and the attorney that was on, loves real estate investing. It sounds like he is an investor, right?
Sounds like it.
Or at least very tied into the investor community, and so like a lot of just great advice from him on how to do things the right way and warnings of what's going to happen if you do things the wrong way. So that was really insightful. It definitely has like reaffirmed a lot of things that we've talked about on this podcast with the state of wholesaling changing, that the barrier to entry is going up. I thought it was intriguing hearing some of the talk about South Carolina and what's happening there, and how people that are capable of still doing deals because they can take it down are making even more money than they were than just a signing. And it sounds like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jerry's doing deals in South
Yeah.
Carolina.
Yeah, I think he kind of, I don't actually know, but he kind of made it sound like he was. But
Yeah,
that was the moral of the story, right? Like, take it down and
yeah.
relist it.
Mhm.
Which is good in certain markets now. Now I do feel like I talked about it the other week on the podcast, how like even locally I see a lot of signs in the yard. Like there's a lot of inventory piling up in my area and probably in other areas, right? Florida and Texas hold the most inventory currently. So it's like Florida and Texas are pretty propped up on
Yeah.
inventory compared to before. So wholesaling might not be as easy as it was, but they're saying like all these regulations and rules that are coming out, like they don't have to do if you want to buy the property themselves. Now the people they're going after, right?
Sound like absolute
Yeah.
shit.
So a lot of it, and this is, so when I got into real estate in 09, 2010, a lot of this was going on, right? We had the recession happening, and before that, like all this stuff of these, and they talked about consultants, right?
Mhm.
Like he spoke to people pretending they were consultants and giving advice with the intent to buy, and that's like practicing law and all that stuff. But I mean, it's like these people, because they did this, they're going after them, and it's not so much what will they win? They will win some, they will lose some, but the idea of what I got from it is precedent.
Mhm.
Is the precedent they're going to set. And so a lot of AGs, a lot of other states are watching to see how this plays out, because what they win here will be a very good case for other states to use as a precedent to go after these types of what they called scammers, right?
Yeah.
Scammers, fraudsters, con artists. Um, yeah, and I was like, yeah, I mean, that's true. High pressure tactics.
High pressure
Um,
tactics. They show up to the door saying we're a charity. Like
yeah,
what?
Oh my gosh, that's so bad.
or as soon as the thing hits the courthouse, right, they're at the door. But the where
30,
they're
yeah, 20 minutes they're trying to knock on the door. Yeah.
But where they're getting them is not so much that they're getting them is as in if they're 1099 employees,
Yeah.
you're telling somebody what to do and when that now makes them an employee and you're not set up. So they're going through these different
They're
avenues.
targeting everything if
Yeah,
they
it's kind of
can.
like how they attacked the mafia, right? And like the drug dealers, like they couldn't get them that way, so they started doing RICO charges to get them as racketeering, right? Like as this organized crime unit, and they could go after him that way, or how they got Capone. They didn't get him for his illegal activities. They got him through IRS, right? And it's like, that's what they're doing. They're looking at these different avenues to get these people because they're not doing business the right way.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. So, I mean, and it came down to contracts too. So a lot of
Yeah.
it's like, well, this stuff happens.
That the contract part was really interesting to me, and like, so like the fact that the attorney on it was like, you know, one of the things that they're going after with the contracts is that you need to have, I can't remember the term he used, but like equal, like
Unilateral.
fairness in the contract. Like
Yeah.
the way they had written the contracts was the buyer could back out at any
Weasel out
point.
clauses is what he
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
And the buyer could back out at any point that he wanted, but the seller could not. And so
Mhm.
that's one of the things that the attorney general is going after, is the fact that the contract's
It's
not fair.
Not fair. It's
Yeah,
not balanced.
to both parties. It's not balanced.
So
And
when he
they were
said-
talking,
Go ahead.
and then they were talking about like two
The clouding title.
clouding title.
Well,
Yes.
we'll get to that. That's a separate thing I want to talk about. But for
Yeah.
the contracts, like I thought about my wholesaling contract is, it protects the buyer specifically, right? Because you're dealing with this other type of personality. But I started thinking about like my mobile home contract, right? I had an attorney draw that up separate. It's a completely different document. In there. And it's tough because when you're dealing with a mobile home park and these types of sellers, generally they have money. Generally, you're talking about millions of dollars, right? So there's a lot more. My deposits are 20, 30, 40, 50, you know what I mean? A lot of money, a lot of fees involved, syndication fees, inspection, due diligence. So the way that is very balanced. It's like there's clauses in there about what the buyer and seller can do. If the seller backs out, the buyer could do this. If the buyer backs out, the seller, and it specifically lines out these different things involving court costs, reimbursement of costs, fees, lost revenue. If the seller if I do something causing the seller lost revenue. And so it's very balanced in that, right? So both the buyer and seller are motivated to move forward, because if not, it outlines what happens if they don't. Now, in a typical wholesaling contract, I get what they're talking about. That's not lined out. And then you have the issue of like what I was always taught by a lawyer was, do they have the money?
Yeah,
like,
and that's one of the things they really harped on. Like, you're going and saying we're gonna buy it when actually you're going to assign it. And what they're saying is going to happen is they're going to get into court and they're going to look at these people, and maybe this guy's different, but they were relating it to the industry as a whole. And it's like, people go in saying we're going to buy the property. When you get to court, they're going to go and say, you don't have any money. You've never taken down a property
they're gonna look at
before.
your
You
history
don't
of
have any
deals.
investors ready to jump on. Like, you never were able to take down the deal, and you are misinterpreting your business to the seller in signing that contract, thinking that you're going to take down the deal. And I thought that was really interesting, and why they liked South Carolina and what South Carolina is going to do, because it makes you take down the deal.
What they say? What did he recommend? Like 500 non-refundable
$500
AMD?
is what he said. He said it.
A lot of this stuff just sounds like fair that guy was jamming on. I'm like, dude,
500
that's
is
pretty
what
fair.
we always do. I didn't know.
As an
I thought
EMD?
that was, I thought that was the standard. I mean, I've heard people doing less, but I always thought 500 was kind of like the standard.
Yeah.
But it's not just that, John. It's like they're going to look at your history of cancellations too.
Yeah.
And it's like, so if you have this history of doing, and he was talking about people doing 10 and 1 or 1 in 10 deals, like close, the other 9 fall out, that's just going to make you look bad. So it really goes into the integrity of your offers and what you're doing. But where I was talking about with the money specifically is why it doesn't make sense in wholesaling. So for example, if using this one park I'm closing this week, right? Like if she canceled today, right, and I had to go after her, I don't feel bad about spending money on a lawyer because I know she has money. I know this person is generating X amount a month from this park. I know this park has, you know what I mean? Like I know she runs these businesses. So if now she doesn't do something, I can go after her, and there's money for me to get based on the clause. Like I could go after her for the attorney fees, all my loss syndication, legal fees, inspection. So if that racks up to 50, 60, 70K, and then whatever else, because like in there it's written like future earnings, all this stuff, right? All of that, I know there's a reason. But if I did that for a seller, a lot of these people don't have a pot to piss in. So the reason why, playing devil's advocate, the reason why a lot of these contracts are unilateral is because we have no other option
to go after a seller. There is nothing we can do to them. Like, there's nothing to take from them. Now, you can fight for the home. And I've heard of people doing that where you fight. And I was reading someone actually took a seller to court and made them close the deal. And now, this is where it gets kind of fun, is he said, if you're going to put the memo down to make somebody close, you have to be ready.
That's clouding title, right? That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
And I think it's a dirty business too. And it's like, man, you know, a lot of people teach it, but like, you have to be ready to take it down. Now, he said, what does that mean? Now, previously, guys, we've all talked about this. What does it mean? Well, generally it means I can close as soon as this seller stopped me from closing. I had a buyer. Okay. He's saying you should take it one step further. He's like, if you really want to prove you have the ability to close and you want to record that memo, deposit with the court the amount of money, or in an escrow
and he
account.
said just leave it, right?
Yeah. So if you're buying
In good faith.
150K home, you better put 150K down.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing we do in like rents, right? Like if a tenant's disputing me and he doesn't want to pay rent, he's still supposed to deposit the rent in a separate account with the court to prove that he's still paying, just not paying me until I make my repair. It's kind of that same, the way my non-lawyer brain works is like that. Kind of sounds like the same. You need to show your good faith of like, I got the money to close, you stop me from doing it. He's like, how many people are going to do that though?
Not many.
None. No one's going to do that, which is why now, if I have the money in my bank account, or I have hard money loans, and John's my hard money lender, and I've closed a bunch of deals with him, and then I record this memo, and I could show a history, even if and I'm making this up, he did not say this, my interpretation based on everything that he said is, if I can't do that, at a bare minimum, I need to show my history.
Right.
And show that you've approved me for this property. Show that I can get the money, and this person stopped me from doing that by not showing up at closing. That may not be a perfect situation, but it's a way of showing that you're able to do it. The sad thing is many people think after the fact. Well, I may not have that history, but yeah, I can go find a hard money lender, but you haven't proven that you've done it before.
Right.
Maybe you've done it once, and here you're causing financial harm to somebody.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so should you record memos? You know, and then he talked about what has happened a lot, right? And I've gotten calls on memos I recorded way back in the day, and I'll just sign them away. And it's like, yeah, cool. Like I didn't do that, you know, like, here you go. And he's like, well, what happens for the wholesaler that did it, was taught by a guru to record memos, but then they go out of business, shut their phone down, don't respond to that email account. You know what I mean? Don't check that PO box or whatever it is, or that PO box. Yeah. It's just, so now you've done financial harm. Like, they can't close because of this cloud, and you're not responding. Somebody could go after them. And so it's like, there's a lot of these things that we just ignored as the wholesaling industry ramped up in popularity. That's now the regulators are saying, this is not good.
Yeah, it was really interesting when Jerry's like, I don't think the reputation of wholesaling can be saved. Like, that was, I think in the first 15 minutes, he said something like that. It's just like, he talked like him and the attorney, like, these are the good business practice that we do. And I like, don't do any of these things, but because the barrier entry has been so low, the payout can be so great. It's attracted so many bad actors and given such a bad name. And the people that do it the right way and do it ethically have not organized enough to repair the reputation. And he kind of said it's lost. He's like, he doesn't see a future of like traditional wholesaling anymore.
It'd be interesting to see. BP, one group that isn't in trouble, the subject to folk.
Yeah, I saw that. He said
it was only mentioned 3 times in the 80-something page.
I think that's a crock of shit. I think that's coming next.
What did I miss?
Coming next. I think the reason why, so he basically said at the very end of the video, subject to was not a target here, but he did not say it's not a target at all. Okay. I think that down the road, subject to is going to get targeted. I think that is just, it's not an if, it's a when. And I think as more of it's gaining, there's so many issues with subject to that haven't played out yet that I think it will be a thing. I mean, the first time I ran into subject to back in like 2010 or 11, like, it was all kinds of problems, like people stopping to pay mortgages, people not knowing that they were still on them, or all kinds of stuff. And so what he was talking about here was disclosures, right? A lot of stuff was about what you disclose to people. And I think that's where sub 2 could get in pretty hard, is what disclosures are they doing? What happens when things go wrong? Now, again, nothing is a problem until it goes wrong.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if remember, this wholesaling has been prevalent since 2017, but it's been going on a lot longer. Subject to has only been prevalent since like 21, right? 2020, 2021. So it hasn't had the history and length to really play out like wholesaling has. And you haven't had wholesaling had a long time for bad actors to get in. And
Yeah,
as
I mean,
this
this
same
lawsuit is what, 10 years of history, they
yeah,
said?
and as soon as this history starts to accumulate and all these bad actors are doing wholesaling or also doing sub 2, it's just like a bolt on to their business. So if they're unethical here, they're unethical there. It only takes time for it to play out.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, what it comes down to is, and I don't think, just going back to it, I don't think the big operations are any more ethical than the small operations. I think the big operations like Nick Perry and Tyree, all these guys, the only thing they have going for them is the fact that
That
they have
capital.
the capital to actually say, I could take this down. They still use the same sales tactics, high pressure tactics, the same marketing tactics, the same door knocking, the same going after people in distress, the same selling them and convincing them and all these things and memos and everything. Now they have the money for the lawyers, the proper contracts. They have the money to take down a property if they need to, but I don't think they're any better than any other business or wholesaler. I just
In
think
the
they have the
Go ahead.
ability to back what they're doing, and that's a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of thing, I do agree with you. I think there are little differences between this one person that they're targeting or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
that dude sounds like an absolute douche.
bro,
Yeah.
like what I read in that. So I read that lawsuit, right? Like we went over it on our own call,
Yeah.
like Don and Carlos and me, and we were like cruising through it, and like that reminded me of a couple of guys I knew back in the day.
Mhm.
Like when real estate was in its wild west in Florida, like
Yeah.
that type of activity. Like I know dudes who they were going after dead people's deeds and all kinds of stuff and like convincing people to sign quit claim deeds for $1. It was just crazy stuff. And they were getting away with it because it was the Wild West. And it's like now with technology and social media, and that's the other thing they're talking about.
Oh
Is
yeah,
like
the
a lot,
bragging.
yeah,
Yeah.
bragging about things, and it's like you're making a target of yourself of the stuff that you do. Like you're saying you're doing all of these things, and all you're doing is giving the AG's office more ammunition
Yeah.
and a target.
Yeah.
It's like
So
rappers talking about crimes they commit and then getting in trouble with the feds.
yeah, which is why like Jay-Z has a line. He's like, every line that I spit about the crime I commit has a different, what do you call it, has a different statute of limitations that I reveal or something. As he reveals everything, it's based on the statute of limitations. It was in one of his albums, and I always thought that was, if that's true, I was like, well, that's pretty smart. Like you don't want to talk about shit until you know you could talk about shit. You know, so ultimately it's like, I think you know, my theory on everything in life, it all reverts back. Everything reverts back to the mean, and I think the mean in wholesaling is state, local. I think eventually everyone's going to pick a state and just become an expert at that state, because I was overwhelmed. I feel like I could balance a lot, right? Like I run multiple businesses, I do different things, okay? But when I was listening, I was like, holy fuck. Like to do this the right way, like lawyers in each
Yeah, you
state,
have to
specific
know.
contract,
Yeah.
you have to know, because he was talking about these statutes about even saying you're a consultant about foreclosures just as a marketing thing is violating in the state of Arizona a specific statute they have about being consultants. And it's like, to know all these and to do it right, it's like, dang, like you can skate on the outskirts and do a bunch of volume and make money, but if you really want to be bulletproof, it's going to cost you some money. And then it's like, well, if that's the case, is somebody like a Nick Perry going to still want to go nationwide? Or are they going to say, you know what, we can really hone in on like 3 states and be specific and have these legal, like every loophole, everything covered, contracts, attorneys on record. We could take them down. We can buy them, wholesale them. Wholetailing could be difficult across 50 states.
Yeah.
Across 3, you do Texas, Florida, and like South Carolina or whatever, you could become a pro.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. What do you think is like the long-term, like, no, the long-term like effects or result, or how this will play out, right? So let's say they go through this, other AGs are watching, and they're like, okay, we can go do a similar thing. But an AG going after somebody just is like recovering money from that. That's not actually, they're not changing the law from this lawsuit.
It's like
So,
billions.
But they are.
are they?
Once you, so I don't listen. I only watch a lot of law shows, like But from my understanding, is it's all about what's called precedent. So once
Right.
you
So,
win a
but
case,
yes, I understand that, right? And that's not the point I'm making. So, like, yeah, once there's precedent, then somebody else in another state can go, or in the same state, and like, here, this happened here, so therefore this must occur again. But what I'm talking about is like how it actually affects the legality of wholesaling. Just because an attorney general went and targeted this person doesn't make everything illegal.
but that's the thing, is they're not targeting wholesaling. They're targeting the way
Right.
they wholesale. That's the thing. From all the different entities they created, the commingling of funds, the not really setting them up, the employees, the deposits, the intent, the high pressure. They're not saying wholesaling is you can't do it.
Right,
They're
but what
saying,
I'm
hey,
talking about is like the third, whatever. Let's just say 30,000 people that wholesale in the United States. Probably not that big, but anyways, there's 30,000 people. This lawsuit doesn't necessarily make it illegal for them to continue. Yes, that's like, hey, this has happened, and if you're doing these businesses practices, it's going to be easier for somebody to come after you. The laws in the states still have to change, like they have in South Carolina, for it to be classified as illegal.
so, okay, I see what you're saying. So I think it's going to be two things. I think you're either going to do one of two. I think one, it's going to lean to you have to buy you could do whatever you want as long as you buy the property. They can't
Right.
tell me what to do if I'm going to
Right.
buy it for myself. Okay. And then I think it's going to be the other part where you have to disclose that you're wholesaling,
Yeah.
which is scary to a lot of people.
Mhm.
Because once you start saying that, like, hey, so like my contract writes out that I'm in it for a profit, I could sell
Yeah.
this, I'm going to do
And
this.
Jerry was talking about that. He's like,
Yeah.
it's in my contract, and I verbally
And
tell
we
every
talk, and I
person.
verbally tell him, like, hey, listen, like, I'm in it for if you think I'm gonna live in this, like, you're wrong. I'm gonna sell this thing to somebody else. Like, if you're not
Yeah.
okay with that, then we shouldn't sign this, right? And so,
Yeah.
like, I have those combos, but for a lot of people, it's not where I think it's not just that. So what I took from it is the moment I decide, so like my part contract, the seller specifically wrote in that when I wholesale it, because it's common for me to assign it to an entity that I'm buying it in because I take it down in one entity and I haven't created my other LLC. So she specifically said, she wrote in, she's like, you can only assign it to an entity I approve of. We had to negotiate, and I was like, okay, that's fine, but it needs to say that I don't need approval if I am the owner of the other LLC, because you can't just say I can't assign it to my thing because you're unhappy. So we had to come to common ground, and then when I do, I have to notify her. So I was like we were texting, and she's like, hey, did you assign this yet? And I was like, yeah, I just sent it over. It's going to be this LLC. I'm the manager. Da, 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 da. And I think that's the other thing. And now think about that, John. So that's mobile home parks. That's different.
Right.
But I relay that to this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have to notify, I think it's going to get to where you have to notify John, the seller, and say, John, I am now assigning this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a lot of people want to do that.
No.
And
They were talking about that, and like people are worried that the seller will then just go contact that person and try to get a different price.
Ethical people do that though.
Well, and here's what I'm assigning it for.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's the other.
That's where it gets challenging.
That's where it gets challenging. Because so if I did that on my mobile home parks, my seller's not going to care because I paid the assignment fee, right?
Right.
Because I'm the buyer, I'm paying all of that. But now on a regular residential, that's not how that goes down, right? Like the seller looks at it as there's more money I could have gotten.
Mm-hmm.
The mobile home park seller doesn't look at it that way. They got their price. What I do to set up my thing, they don't care about, but that's not a residential person. You're making 20K off of them, or 30K or 50K. They're thinking, I could have listed this. Because remember, it's off market. I could have listed this and paid a realtor and walked away with more money. So a lot of people aren't going to want to do that. But I think that, John, is like the future of take it down, or if you're wholesaling, you have to disclose it up front. And then when you wholesale, you have to give them within amount of days, the contract, the price, and here's what's happening. And there is a state that is requiring that, and I don't know the state off the top of my head.
So, like, how does that change wholesaling? Does that mean that, like, you should be like taking it down is really the only way that you're going to effectively navigate those conversations with that seller, because you could assign it to your own, like, whatever, housing LLC. You're the buyer, you're taking it down, and then after that you can list it and make your
Well, yeah, and you'll make more
20,
money
30,
that way
40,
too, right?
50K.
Like, yeah, I mean, if you have the funds, that's the best way to wholesale. That's what before wholesaling, that's what we used to do.
Yeah.
Like in Florida, all the foreclosures, when my buddies had foreclosures and before all the foreclosure laws and all that, we would buy them, take them down, and literally relist them. And you
Yeah.
would see on the MLS foreclosures, because that was all that was on the MLS back in the day, it'd be 1 day pending.
Mm-hmm.
And you knew at that moment, the realtor knew a buyer, sent a contract day one, sent it over. And then that became illegal. And then there's like, you had Wells Fargo and all them came out with days waiting. Like you had to 7 day, they called it something, 7 day cooling period to allow homeowners to potentially buy it because they complained in
Yeah.
saying that this isn't fair. And that took years to get to that. And then after 7 days, an investor can make an offer, right?
Yeah.
And so those things grew, and I think that's going to happen.
Well, and that's the point I was trying to get to. Like, how much time do you think it's going to take for these kind of things to happen? Like, yes, a precedent might be set here,
Years.
but that doesn't mean like next month,
We've been
it's
talking about
over.
this for a couple of years, and only a few states have done it. I think
Yeah.
you'll see state after state start rolling it out, and I think over the next 5 years, almost every state is going to have some type of law against it. But
Yeah.
so like I use Nick Perry as an example, right? Because he does a shit ton of volume. He's one of the most popular, well-known people. He's got a big sales team and he does it nationwide. And he has the financial ability to do whatever he needs to do, have the lawyers. I mean, he could do whatever he wants. But then you start to say all these regulations, does it become beneficial for him or not? And then he says, you got to start looking. Well, if I go to a couple of teams and I'm taking the property down myself, I cease to need a big dispo team. I cease to need all of these acquisition reps. I can start to run a leaner team, do less volume, and make more money.
Yeah, Jerry was talking about that. Yeah, you can do less deals, make more money.
And then the thing is where you could start to get kickbacks and stuff. So like not kickbacks, that's the wrong word. Referral fees. So like if you're a licensed realtor, you could have your own brokerage and be the one making the commission when you list it, or get a referral every time. So like a lot of guys, if I give you a wholesale listing, John, you're going to give me my brokerage a 25% referral. You do the work and give me 25%. So I'm making my sale price and then I'm making my referral on it. And then
that's interesting, right? But what that does is it takes what wholesalers are currently doing, the available properties that fit the criteria of what they're able to do, and really narrows it to what effectively could work well as a wholesale, right? Like we're saying, here's
all of them
this.
can work as a wholesale. Everything works as a wholesale.
Everything works as a hotel.
Everything. Name something that you don't think will work as a wholesale.
Water damage property.
Cool. I used to buy them all the time off the MLS.
Okay.
What everyone now forgets is before Investor Lift, before none of this technology existed 15 years ago, and we all made a shit ton of money. It's just I go back to it. It'll revert back to the mean. Investor Lift will cease to be needed. Investor Base, all these softwares, if these laws are enacted, Dispo in and of itself is going to be moot. You're going to go to listing it on the MLS.
And so we'll just have more crap properties on the MLS. And so we took them off the MLS. Now they're going back on the MLS.
Yeah. And
do you think, though, we would see more flippers want to generate their own leads because they would be closing the properties?
Because again, so now what happens is wholesalers start to go away. There's less of them. Marketing opens up. Nick Perry's now not in 50 states. He's in 3 or 4 or 5. So, Florida's not as crowded anymore. And so now me as that local flipper, I'll start getting Carrot Site. I'll start doing some SEO and I'll go back to it and I could go visit in person without the risk of somebody over the phone beating me to it. And it's all good for the seller.
Yeah.
Right. And it's good for the buyer too. We made money because there was no laws and you could do volume and you could spread it across multiple states, de-risk your financial spend on marketing, and you could make money that way. I stand by that people like Nick Perry can make more money when they take them down because they can run on a leaner team, take down the properties and avoid all of the legal headaches. And you just buy the property and list them and you win some and you lose some. I mean, I've wholetailed some where I've got out by the skin of my teeth and I've wholetailed some where I've made 6 digits or 6-figure on my wholesale fee. And it's like, you just don't know, but no one can say anything because I bought it.
Right.
And if I buy it, and so the other part of that was licensing real estate without a license, or practicing real estate without a license. And that's where they were saying like they're going to try to get them to, is because you're
I mean, that's what the
essentially,
NAR is trying to do, right?
yeah,
That's what they want everybody who's a wholesaler to be a realtor, right?
yeah,
That's
because they're
their
saying
main
like,
thing.
yeah, because, and in the sense, like, you're right. Like,
Yeah.
I hate being a real, like, I hate realtors, dude. I'm a realtor broker. I hate NAR. I think they sold us down the river. I could get into all of that stuff, but I also agree with them. You have people practicing real estate that are not real estate. Do I think being a realtor means anything? No.
Right.
Being a realtor is the dumbest group of people who in the history of people. And it's like they took a test at some cafeteria like classroom for a week, and the guy basically coaches you on what to say and how to answer it. Most of them fail. I knew a guy who failed it 3 fucking times, and he owns a brokerage. And it's like there's no measurement of how good you are, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, so I don't think being a realtor means much other than, if you fuck up, I could take your license. So
Mm-hmm.
there's accountability. And that's what they want. It's not so much saying realtors operate ethically, because they don't.
Right.
It's just saying, when we catch you, we can now strip you. And so at the very end of that video, they were saying what they were trying to do was to make them cease to operate in real estate ever again, with the exception of buying their own personal, I want to live in it residence. And that I agree
How do you
with.
do that? How can
I
you?
mean, you strip them. Like, you can't, I don't actually know how that happens. But I think there's a way when you pull title, somebody could be blackballed. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure you could be blackballed somehow, because you have to get title insurance. So I'm sure there's some linkage. I don't know,
Okay.
but
That
I'm
would make
sure there's
sense.
some linkage there where someone's getting blackballed. Like, no, I can't sign this. We
Mm-hmm.
can't insure this because of this person.
Yeah.
Now, will they find other ways around it? A shady person will always do shady things. So they could have patsies, like they did in, what do they call it? Like, in Stratton Oakmont, Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. He had
Oh
like
yeah. Mhm.
he had people holding shares for him and all these different things, rat holes he called them. Like, you can, I mean, I've known guys who get their license revoked and all kinds of shit and get in trouble in real estate, and they're partnering with someone who does all of the legwork, and like they're the ones behind the scenes. I mean, there's a lot of, real estate is a shady business.
Yeah.
So again,
Hmm.
getting your license doesn't mean you're ethical. It just means they now have a way to get you
Right.
and collect fees, which I
Yeah.
don't like paying.
Is that like a
So
yearly fee that you have to pay?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like, I just realized my license, like my one thing was lapsed, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's because you didn't pay your fucking membership fee." I'm like, "No, how much is it?" They're like, "Oh, so you owe us like $300 and like some dollars. Plus, I'm a broker, so it's like double the fees for everything." And I'm like, "This is awesome. Thank you for taking my money."
And doing nothing.
Yeah, but it's like, but I get it. Like, all of this, I don't disagree, and we've been saying it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't disagree either, at all. Yeah, we've been saying it for ages on here, so it was fun to listen to somebody else and a knowledgeable attorney say the same things that we say.
Yeah, but like, if you go ask Nick Perry right now, guarantee he says, I'm not going to worry about it. Because
Well, I
somebody.
know that he's been
Okay.
changing his business model
Oh yeah.
to not
Not
I
as a
don't think
result of this, but just
not
that.
as a result of this, just but as a result of like what he looks at and what his business needs, and he has grown, and so he knows that there's better ways and better margins to make, so
Yeah.
he's been changing his business model, which kind of aligns with us anyways.
I mean, moral of the story is take down your properties.
Yeah.
Be able to have hard money and find private money. There's great guys out there that teach that stuff, and become a real. So like, wholesalers aren't real estate. I love talking wholesalers because they're not real estate people. They are salespeople.
Salespeople,
And
yeah.
they try to be real estate. I'm a real estate guy and a sales guy. I was born and bred in real estate, right? Since I was 24 years old, and sadly I'm 40. But it's like it's been a while, bro. Like, you have to understand, because now you're on the hook. Now
Mhm.
it's your money. That
Right.
offer better be good, And so, but think about it. Why do I need Dispo anymore?
More people moving novations anyway.
Right? Like it's novations, yeah, okay, but like dispo, it's like if my realtor is my dispo person now.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
I mean, so does that is there a space in the market that gets filled there? Then I mean, no, because the MLS
I
already
used to be
delivers
a
to all these
dispo
people
guy for investors. Back in the day, I was a dispo outlet for people before all this happened and emails and
because you were
MailChimps
a
and
realtor.
because I was a realtor. So my investors, I would find them something and
Yeah.
then they would relist it with me, or they would find it on their own at a tax sale, a foreclosure. Because back in the day, you go to the auctions in person, they'd get it there, and then they'd be like, they'd season it, whatever they had to do, because then there were seasoning rules, all kinds of stuff. But then they would give it to me and say, Brandon, I want you to put this on the market. Here's the deal, and it would be a piece of shit, and you'd
So
put
all
it on
those
the.
people that have gotten used to like investor lift sending them emails are gonna have to go find a
They're gonna.
realtor, and that realtor is gonna watch out for deals for them. Is that basically what you're thinking is gonna happen?
No, well, yes and no. I think it's what you said earlier. I think a lot of invest. So now you're talking about like that would be like a wholesaler. I think we're getting away from the wholesaler marketing salesperson,
Right.
right? And I think if me, the investor, like
Oh, so you're talking more like the relationships and
the
and
flipper itself, I don't need. If everything's listed on the MLS, I could see what's listed.
yeah.
I have access to what realtor. So back in the day, that was not true. But then, so it's technology has changed all this, John. What I was
Right.
talking about before, Zillow didn't exist. Zillow didn't come out until like mid 2000, like 2010, 11, 12, when it started really getting. And then they didn't even have direct feed into the MLS. So it was like an IDX feed. And so realtors played a game where we had access to things that you couldn't. I remember when I used to
Yeah.
show properties and I would say, we're going to 123 ABC Street, and you had no idea what that was. And then years later, I said 123 ABC Street. The wife is looking it up the night before, finding all the. What is my job then? You already know every fucking thing, like. And so I think it's going to that, to where if I want to see something, I find it on the MLS and I call my realtor and I'm like, hey, I want to take it down. Or I call that realtor and I try to take it down that way. And it's like, because if I'm now the wholetailer, I will buy it, list it with a realtor, and let them do the work of dealing. It's going back to, and that's what they want. That's what NAR wants.
Mhm.
That's why everyone's rooting for this, is because they want the MLS to be the powerhouse. And I think the MLS is a fucking scam to begin with, and it's a ripoff, and they control all your data. But it's like, that's what they want, is they want it to be some centralized hub. And so could Investor Lift do something? Yeah, I guess they could. Technically, if I buy my own property, no one says I have to list it on the MLS. I don't
Right.
need a realtor. So technically, Brandon could be wrong. And now Nick Perry, instead of having a dispo guy sell it off market, right? Investor Lift is the new MLS without all the rules and regulations. And it's like, my dispo guy now just lists it for sale, because you don't need a license if you're selling your own property.
Ah, okay. Interesting. But you would still need to have a license to take down the property and no,
So
right?
again, if those laws pass, then yeah.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that has to do. You don't need a license to take it down if you're buying it for yourself. Where the license comes in is because of the wholesalers. I am actively marketing to a property to then
Right.
sell property I don't own. That
Right.
is practicing real estate and brokering deals. That's what they're trying to claim, and
Okay.
saying wholesalers are really brokering. This is illegal. And then on top of that, what that guy talks about is, you're compensating a sales guy on the result
Mhm.
of a real estate transaction. That becomes practicing real estate. So that's illegal. So if I go and I list a property for Mary down the street, and a friend of mine procures a buyer, and he's just a buddy at a bar, and he finds me a buyer and he says, yeah, pay me 25%, and I go and pay him, that is illegal. He is not a license. I cannot compensate somebody
Mm.
for a real estate transaction based on the closing of a real estate transaction.
Unless they're licensed.
Now, I can pay him for other things, but it cannot be as a result of the successful closing of that transaction,
Okay.
right? That's the way I understand it as a broker. So, which is why you get your license, because now I can get referral fees. I say, John, Mary wants to sell her property. You say, yes, cool, send me 25%. I do nothing, which is why a lot of people still maintain their license, because they make a living off referrals. So
Mm.
they're going after that too, saying people like Nick Perry in all these big wholesalers. So if they win that, they can target everybody.
Right.
Because every one of them, if you look, we all call it commissions.
Mm-hmm.
All the YouTube videos talk about commissions based on how much they sell.
Mm-hmm.
That is tech, and that's what I said earlier of they're not going at you wholesaling. They're going at you the way you run your wholesaling business and attacking the inner workings of you to dismantle you from the inside. And once they could dismantle you from the inside, then they could start to write laws.
Yeah.
Now you become susceptible to those laws. And
Yeah.
so that's where I think, but once you buy it, no one can tell you what to do. I can have my kid go outside with a lemonade stand and a for sale sign saying this house for sale, get some lemonade and we'll give you this. And you know what I mean? Like that's okay because we own
Yeah.
that property.
Yeah, you for sale by owner. That's all legal.
That's all legal, right? And so that's something that I think is going to happen. So again, people like Nick or Tiffany or Tariq and all those guys. I keep calling him Tyreek like Tyreek Hill. But I think it's going to change things and they're going to look at it and be like, okay, well, what do we do now?
Mm-hmm.
And will Investor Lift still have a business?
That's a hot take. The no dispo would be a hot take.
Why do I need a dispo? So again, that case that I said, where instead of putting it on the MLS, I put it on Investor
I mean, there's
Lift.
still a case to say, like Investor Lift helps you find buyers that will pay the most, and if you can enforce a bidding war, if you say
Nobody-
that goes away,
Nobody
in
helps
MLS,
you find a buyer that pays the most in the MLS.
whatever. But okay.
But
But
the
if
only
it's a
reason why Investor Lift exists, Investor Lift has no business model. Okay, Investor Lift, he didn't do anything special. Investor Lift is a reimagination of the MLS that already existed. The MLS is a melting or a convergent point for all realtors to share their stuff so they could find a buyer for a seller. It's just a networking place.
But do you think that there's a
Investor Lift-
place where, like, I mean, you're assuming that anybody that purchases crap real estate because they're a flipper or they want to rent it or whatever will just automatically not like I mean, maybe it's just
Why
the world
would
I
I
don't
not
understand.
want it on the? So okay.
No, I get that. But what you're assuming is that they then just start looking at the MLS and they're looking for properties on the MLS and versus what has been created in the wholesaling dispo world where they're bombarded with outbound communication of here's a property to sell. Like you're going from like
Nobody likes
outbound to
that.
them being inbound to the MLS.
Yeah, I agree that there's always going to be a VIP list.
Yeah.
Like, my guy, he buys 20 properties. I buy this, he'll buy it from me, and I don't need to do. And there's always going to be that. But we're talking, you specifically said all crap properties, all this stuff, and we're talking not everything always fits the bill of a VIP person, right? And I'm not going to not take it down just because it's not a VIP quality property.
Right.
So what I'm saying is like, but where would you put that? Investor Lift or the MLS? That's why I'm saying Investor Lift.
It'd still go on the MLS, but you still would want to dispo it to a degree. You're not just gonna like stick it on there and be like, all right, here it goes. I did everything I did, and now they're gonna roll in.
So dispo now ceases to be a sales department and ceases to be one person managing transactions.
Right.
So if I'm a dispo guy, I am going to probably, like, if I were to think of this business plan, I'm going to have one dispo guy for my entire company to handle all 20 to 30 transactions, because of those 20,
maybe only
let's just say
5 you have
five,
to do the old way.
I do the old way with an email, instant phone calls, and I sell it. If not, then it goes to a realtor. Once it's with a realtor, my job ceases to exist, and I work it as a TC type of job where I'm just making sure my realtors, because what people don't understand about the beauty of realtors is they're like, they're mules. They're like fucking retarded mules who will do hard labor for little money. You can literally, like, dude, I was so dumb back in the day, and any realtor who argues with me about this just never fucking did any hard work. I would be like, yes, sir, I will go take your photos myself. Yes, sir, I will go do a valuation for you. I will help you. I will meet the plumber for you. I will meet the contractor. I will meet your buyers. I will do whatever it takes to get this listing. Please, please, please. I would be doing reports every month just to update values, more legwork, just so I could get that business, because you have the hopes of getting the listing in the buy side. Right. So why would I not want to invoke that for what's now down to 2.5%, when typically I'm paying a dispo more than that? Right. We all pay our dispo people more than we would pay our realtors. But again, pause. all of this was created because none of these laws or regulations were bothering us. So we were able to work on this volume scale in this nether world, right? This like in between world of like between listing and like legal and illegal. And like we were here. So your dispo guys were getting 5, 7, 8%, right? Plus a salary. Your acquisition guys are getting, you know, salaries plus commissions, and you're making a fuck because there was no other way to do it.
Right. Yeah.
But now there will be, and people will start to realize what I'm saying right now. Why am I going to pay all these dispo guys a higher percentage than I could just have a realtor do all the work for me, write the contracts, handle the transaction closing, line up the lenders, go to the inspections, do all of these things?
Yeah.
Why am I going to have a dispo? Hey, that 150 you pay for a runner, so here investor boots no longer needed.
Because the realtor's going to do it.
Realtors are the retarded mule of the industry. They will literally go and be like, yeah, I'll go do that. Yeah, 100%. Like, I'll go run and do that right now. Hey, man, like, the key got stolen. I need you to go rekey. Okay, I'll meet the guy there. I'm there, like, in my kid's soccer game. I'm not going to now. And we used to do that because this is how they make their living. And they work off of volume.
Yeah.
So they need your business. And so I would find it hard to believe Nick wouldn't look at those numbers and say, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
I paid 2.5%, no
You just got to
salaries,
find
no liability.
the hungriest realtor or a couple of them.
One in, you're going to need one in like every tri-county. Like I could work Polk County, and maybe one in a county. Like you have to work a couple. Like for my clients, I used to work coast to coast. I had multiple MLSs, so I would have, I don't know how it works now because they all merged, but I had 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6 MLSs that I had to go take tests for, and I would drive all over so I could list all their properties from coast to coast, from like all the way up to like New
But how
Smyrna
many of
down to Cocoa.
How many people did you meet that were as hungry as you? I feel like, I mean,
Not
I
many.
agree. You were an absolute baller and hard worker, but
Yeah,
are there a lot of you out there?
Yeah, I think there's more. I don't think there's a lot, but I think there's more than we assume.
Okay.
And I think, again, would I do that today? Nah, bro. Like I'm 40. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm not that. I'm
Find
doing
that
other shit with my
young
life. Yeah.
realtor.
You want that? You want a realtor that's humble,
Yeah.
young, hungry, and has a good ability to learn.
Yeah.
And be willing to learn with you, and not be prideful. You know what I mean? Like they're, and so you find that person, dude. You could have somebody cover Tampa all the way into Polk County, and somebody from Orlando all the way over to the coast, and they could get multiple MLSs. You know what I mean? Like, and nowadays, I think most MLSs merged. Like my MLS covers like from Ocala all the way down through Sarasota, Okeechobee. Like, you know, so you would need one guy to list all those properties. Even for my hedge funds, I managed all of Central Florida for them when I was doing their rentals. So like they had one guy and then my team underneath me. So that's the other thing is like you get a broker.
Yeah.
And like, and so that's what the big asset. And so, sorry guys, but like if you ask me where it's going next, people like Nick Perry, they start to become like the asset management companies. And what they start to do is now they're getting brokerages, and they would sign master broker agreements. So I would sign master broker agreements with the hedge funds, and that means anyone in my brokerage could then do the work. And we all, you know, it doesn't matter if it's John, Mary, or Joe. Brandon's brokerage is the one that's mastered on this agreement. And Fannie and Freddie do the same thing. Like my Remax brokerage had a Freddie contract, and so Tony would then distribute those listings to whoever he felt was the best performer. And so like it was obviously like his son and my partner, my mentor Bob, like they would get the Freddie listings, right? Like those were the big guys, and so he would give it to them. It wasn't Tony doing the listings. So I think people like Nick, they'll start to not find an agent, but they'll find a brokerage, and they'll find a broker, and you can go share this with them, and they'll go do it. And it's like this is exactly the way it should be. So I think these things are good. I think it's going to change the way business is done. I think. Yeah. Anyway,
I think what's interesting.
It'll be interesting to see how fast it comes out.
I'm intrigued about the timeline because what I'm seeing from a software perspective, and we've talked about it, is like the wholesaling community is going to shrink, and there's going to be more bigger people on top. I'm like, that is like, this is making it clear as day. We're moving in that direction, and it's like gone are the days of SaaS software volume of like newbies and beginners or people that are trying to do it. And now it's like, I, as a business owner who makes software solutions for this industry, I need to charge more. I need a solution that I can charge more money to these big people versus
You,
like my income of whatever I sell being distributed across thousands of people. It might be 200, 150, right?
1,000.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I disagree with that because I
really?
think you're looking. I think you're looking at it again. You keep referring to wholesalers. I think any SaaS products needs to stop thinking of wholesaling because wholesaling only handles half of a side of an entire transaction. So most wholesaling stuff. So which is why like softwares like Resimply or what's the other one on Salesforce? I forget. Those
Left
ones,
main.
Left Main,
Left.
those ones cater to the entire side of a transaction, but a specific transaction typically with modifications to do other things. I think most softwares need to start looking at how do we handle an entire side, an entire transaction, both sides, and multiple types of transactions across all real estate. So I think right now, softwares like Investor Fuse that were started back in the day and like Batch and all the, and I'm just picking names, they all were great because it was, I cater to a wholesaler who needs a lead to get a
Mhm.
contract done. Here's your data. Here's your seller lead. Here's your notes. Here's your phone call system. And you made money because there was a need for that because, like you said, volume.
Right.
But now people like me are going to start to say, wait, I don't need that. I need something that can help me buy the property, take the property down, relist the property, manage all like the KPIs in between that, be able to like deal with my rehab that's going on. There's a 3-month lag before it goes live. I need to track the people like my realtors. I need to track all of the stuff that's involved in this because now it's not just like buyers. Now I need to track my realtors in each area, the brokerages, who
Oh,
does the most volume so I can pick the right realtor. I need to track all of these things. And so I think softwares need to start saying, how do I encompass all of it? Because you're right, the pie of one thing shrunk, but the pie of all of it is still big. You know what I mean? So I see that as a software's way. So like investor base, gone. Because why do I need to go find buyers when the MLS will do it for me? So they need to come up with something different. Investor lift, same thing. It's
mhm.
like, why do I need an off market MLS when everyone's being forced to put it on market anyway? Like, why would I not just use the MLS? Why do I want to pay?
Would the seller side go away? Why would a seller sell it to an investor? Why wouldn't they just list on the MLS
Because
themselves? Playing
that will
devil's
not
advocate.
go away. Because the
Why?
reasons why a seller sells is you still have all your pain points still exist. All your pain points. And so what I'm willing to do is take that pain off. I'm like an umbrella. Like all the rain that's coming down and all causing you pain, I will shield you from that. I will open up my umbrella. I will buy it from you and I will deal with the rain. You take the money and go away. I will buy it, close it. I will then go and deal
Yeah,
with
the
the
attorney talked about that.
realtor.
He's like,
Yeah.
"There's a need for this, and that need is not going anywhere. It's going to continue, and a realtor is
No.
not gonna, like, handle that type of
No,
need."
because they don't make enough. They
I
don't
think
make
that
enough to handle it.
I think that argument though is going to keep buyers in place because if there's a place on market, there's always psychologically going to want to be buyers that get something cheaper. That's how investors are. They always want to get something at a
Yeah.
discount. So wholesalers, without putting on the market, they could say, "Hey, I get top dollar," or same thing, I could sell it to my own
So
buyers that
again,
would probably get close to
I
what
think
I'd get on
20%.
MLS.
I would say 20% out of 20 homes, 5 of them will essentially go to a VIP buyer. But the days of me hounding buyers, why do I need to go find that newbie? So the whole point of Investor Lift is like, I'll find you like, in Robert speaks of it, like the person who pays the most is like that first time
Right.
flipper, you know, they'll buy 1 or 2 properties a year.
Mhm.
Why do I need to go find that, pay for phone, dialing, data, $30,000 Investor Lift accounts when I put it on the MLS and he's already working with some newbie realtor on Instagram when they're thirst traps? Like, why do I need to do that? Now, I called John, my big buyer, up. That requires no smartphone, no dial pad. It requires no data. It requires nothing. All it requires is me saying, "Hey, John," or texting John, "John, got a new deal. You want this one?" No? Cool. Hey, man, send this to our realtor in Polk County. Put it on the MLS. John in Joe and Dan, they don't want it. Those are our VIPs in that area. Why am I going to go do all? Because it's all money. All of that takes time and money.
Yeah.
So if I can run a much leaner team and let the realtor do all the work, I'm not saving anything, Carlos. By saying I'm still going to go find buyers, it's going to cost me more than if I let the realtor do it. Realtors are 2.5%. Dispo is what? Who knows the current rate in Dispo?
No idea.
I don't know either. 6, 8, 10?
Is there an argument for people to have a realtor on their team though?
Oh, 100%. I think you should. Best shops I know have realtors on their team because, again,
But doesn't that mean they still have to do a lot of that legwork?
well, what I'm saying is like the realtor does. So if I have a realtor on my team, now my leads, my on market, my listing quality leads go to them too, and the realtor just gets even busier. So again, if I had a master broker agreement, I don't need somebody on my team.
Yeah.
They are my team. And so I send it to Brandon's brokerage. I'm like, Brandon, here's a listing, here's a listing, here's a listing, here's this. And that keeps you hungry. So now maybe even if I don't make any money on that, right? Because technically I can't get kickbacks unless I myself am a licensed agent. But now I'm giving you so much volume, maybe now instead of 2.5%, I negotiate you 2%. Or maybe now instead it's like you pay for my photos, which we all were paying for, and that's what, $100, 150, depends, whatever it is. Like maybe now you're paying for that because I'm giving you all this other business. And so like again, why would I not want the best, cheapest way of the MLS has always been the best way to dispo it. We only had to create other ways because we operated outside of it. And now they're pulling now they're pulling us in.
Yeah.
And I think SaaS softwares are going to change to reflect that. And they're going to say it's now not just about lead generation. It's now about the entire transaction and multiple types of transactions and the data involved in it.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Hard money is a good business to be in.
Phenomenal business, always has been. Problem
not
is
going
like why the reason I was going to say something earlier, but the reason why your event had so many hard money lenders and finance lenders is because like even when I was starting out, the hardest thing for somebody buying one property a year or whatever, or newbie to the rental game is the financing side of things. They don't know anybody or anything because they're not like professionals, right? They have a job and they want to get into real estate. So now they go there and they grab the cards and now they have hard money people to call. I mean, I remember that's what I used to do.
Well, very interesting video. I mean, we gave our opinions on it. I still recommend that you guys go watch the original one. I think that lawyer is very experienced and had a lot of, great opinions. And Jerry, obviously. The ethics, I think, I mean, we didn't really talk about the ethics here, more kind of like how it's going to
we
affect
didn't.
wholesaling.
We did not talk about memos and all that stuff, but moral of the story is operate
Be
ethically.
ethical. Or the attorney generals are going to come after you.
Yeah.
Be ethical and look to the future where this is going and understand you're going to take down properties and start moving in that direction. But yeah, definitely watch the original one. But yeah, this is a good chat, guys.
All right.
Any last words for our audience?
No.
You know what I want to talk about?
Yeah,
in a future episode completely unrelated to real estate, more of the and stuff, is AI and education. I keep seeing a lot of stuff pop up there, and I think there's some very interesting opinions, but a lot of combative opinions from the educators of the world. I'd be curious to have a conversation about that.
I would need to have you send me some info, links, videos, YouTube's, articles. I would love to read about that. I agree. I've seen more and more talk of that online.
I think it's interesting to see how that could change, what it could change for like kids going through education and like how that affects the future of the world. I think is pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
I've just started thinking about it. So I'll send you guys some links and we'll chat about it in a future episode.
Lock and load.
All right, guys.